At some point in the process, the idea came to me to do the story of Catherine and Victoria, an elderly woman and a younger woman who had been married to the same man. And then it was, I think, while we were finishing up production on Justin's story, I couldn't really be on set anymore. Chris said to me the most help you could be would be to start working on the screenplay for Catherine's story.
We really went about this not even sure where the story was going to be going. And it was scary. I was engrossed and immersed in shooting Justin's story. Meanwhile, we had no idea where Catherine's story was going, except for the small overlap points that we knew were going to be built in between those two stories.
I kind of looked at the other screenplays that he had ended up putting together from the work that we had done, and looking at the structure and remembering some little tidbits here and there about, don't make the scenes longer than this. And I said, all right.
Jen had never really written a screenplay before, rose to the challenge, and while I was shooting, she cranked out this amazing piece of work.
So I did a draft, I sent it to Chris. He sat down with me and workshopped it.
At one point she had put the resolution before the climax, but once I explained what the problem was and why, it made sense and we switched it around.
Went back, showed it to people, wrote, added, it got done very quickly.
I didn't know anything about the film, and a friend of mine knew someone who knew someone. After all, in Ithaca, everybody knows everybody, it seems. And they wanted somebody of a certain age.
It's a difficult role to play. It's not a happy story. And also it might be hard to find an elderly woman who would be willing to do this kind of project for no money. And
they came to interview me.
The minute she opened the door, I felt this energy radiating, and I felt it not only from Natasha but also from Chris. It was like I didn't have to even say anything. I just kind of knew. And
come quickly! I've got something wonderful to show you.
I don't know at what point we both looked at each other with a knowing look, but it was very quick. I liked her so much, first of all, but I also turned to Chris and I said, I don't know if you realize this, but I feel like Natasha and I really look like each other. Like I could be her when I'm old. And Natasha saw it too, and we thought that might add an interesting aspect to the story. Of all the people that her husband would have messed up with, it would be somebody that maybe reminded him of his wife when she was young.
And she said, I think I would like to act with her. I think we would make a good team.
Black ink had the newsprint, red ink had the fortunes, yet it was still about the written word. It was about her writing, it was about Jim's writing. Because the character loses her eyesight,
Victoria?
We chose to call it Invisible Ink.
It was a miracle that we had a finished script ready for Catherine's story, pretty much right on the verge of me finishing the shoot for Justin's story. We finished Justin's story one weekend, had a cast meeting that Thursday, and started shooting 2 days later on the next Saturday.
I live alone, and having a lot of young people around, that was absolutely great. And everybody was, fabulous.
We were really on a roll. We had done 2 stories already for shooting. And by the time we embarked on Catherine's story, it felt to me more like walking downhill.
I didn't even know that I had energy.
Right. Okay. Keep it more subdued.
Yeah.
And I think when we got on set with it, I was so impressed with the clarity of his vision. I don't even know if he blinked. It was like he knew where every chair needed to be, where every table needed to be. I mean, the fact that he had this picture in his mind, it made it so easy.
No, you say hello first to her, so I should be on your other side.
The thing that was great for me about Jen's script was that there were fewer characters and fewer locations and fewer problems to deal with in terms of production.
And a lot of it was filmed in the house. What are you doing here? It's almost 10 o'clock. As a matter of fact, I think that I could tell my friends, if you want to know what my house looks like, come and see the film.
And she was constantly the hostess the whole time, even though she was acting.
She has to be in the shot. It doesn't matter.
And it was just a much more comfortable environment. There was much less stress about it.
I'm sorry, it's not my fault.
I also knew that I was losing some of my crew members going back to school or starting other jobs. So I knew that the shooting for Catherine's story was going to have to be a lot smaller.
The other thing for me that was quite different is starting with the end. You mean blankly?
Blankly, yes.
I thought you said lightly and I wasn't sure. Okay.
We always shot the final scene of each story the first day. It happened with Anna's story sort of accidentally. When we moved on to Justin's story, the same thing happened.
That was very different for me. I hadn't gone through the whole film, so the character all of a sudden had to come to life at the very end rather than at the beginning.
And in some ways, it's a really great way to overwhelm our main actor a little bit by having to think that they know the whole story and act that last scene.
Okay, go ahead.
She thought it was a sex line, huh? She has a bad mind, Jen.
I know.
no.
Uh-oh. Don't take that one. I had done some theater, and at some point in time, I decided I had too much angst learning lines, and I no longer wanted to be in a play. I thought, all right, in the film, you know, it's they cuts, and if I forget a line, it'll be okay.
And Natasha, of course, comes from a very theatrical background, and she's just a big, flamboyant personality anyway, so it was often trickiest to get her to come down and just be a regular person.
At night I rehearse, in the morning I rehearse, and then all of a sudden I hear, you know, places, action.
Hey, Grandpa.
And there I am, totally forgetting what I'm supposed to say.
Her real husband in real life had died, I think 5 years before.
And I have pictures of him everywhere. And to think that he was part of it, for me, that was perfectly wonderful.
And so that's actually who's in all the photographs playing her husband. And so she felt that she could really relate to the character.
We had a shoot across the street. Our road was being totally demolished. Court Street was a disaster. Wow, mud. I had to afterwards go to the cleaners.
And action. You know, I think you would have looked really good in that dress. No, I like that.
We wound up shooting the diner scenes at 6 a.m. on a weekday before everyone else had to be at work.
Job, yeah. And you can still
And most people had to be at work by 8 or 9.
no.
And so everyone got up at the crack of who knows what. And it really was a testament to how devoted people were. And everyone showed up excited to do the shoot, perky, and they're some of the best performances in the film.
He was having an affair. I felt like I was one of them, and I was never treated any differently. I enjoyed myself totally.
We really loved being around her.
I felt very sad when it was all over.
It was a breath of fresh air.
No, I'm not really conscious of my age, to tell you the truth. And if anybody else is, well, they didn't kiss my hand or bow down or even show me the respect